What we are going to do in this video is to learn how to calculate members in heap roof. But before we do the calculation, there is need for us to identify each member in this kind of roof. Identification of these members will aid us during the calculation. It will help us a lot during the calculation. So this is what you need to know. We have the wall plate in heap roof. The wall plate run across the perimeter of the floor plan. The wall plate will run across this external wall in the floor plan. You see this wall, that's how the wall plate will run. So if you look at the cross section, this is where you have the wall plate. This is where you have the wall plate. So after identifying the wall plate, the next thing for us to identify, for us to know, is the tie beam. Now looking at this plan, let us look at this top view. We have this heap here, we have this heap here. Our tie beam is going to run across this width from this point to this point, from this point to this point, across the width, across this width. Here we're going to have our tie beam. This place here will have this rafter. At every point where you have your rafter, you have your tie beam across this width, across this width, across this width. This is where you have your tie beam. Now the next thing for us to talk about is our king post. Looking at this cross section, let's use this cross section to identify our king post. This member here, from this point to this point, is our king post. This is our king post. So having known the king post, the next member for us to identify is our rafter. But in heap roof, we have different types of rafter. Look at it. You see this rafter that run across this point at this heap. This rafter that run across this point at this heap is called heap rafter. It's called what? Heap rafter. Haven't identified this rafter. The next rafter for us to talk about, for you to identify also, is this rafter that run from this point to this point, from this point to this point, from this point to this point, from this point to this point. This rafter is called common rafter. Common rafter. Also, the rafter that run from the top of the king post down to this point is also known as common rafter. This rafter is common rafter also. This rafter is also known as common rafter. Take note, please. Having known that, then we'll have this other rafter that will run. Look at this place. Identify it here. This rafter that will run at this point. At this point. They are not always equal. This rafter is called jack rafter. So you can see that we have identified the three types of rafter: the heap rafter, the common rafter, and the jack rafter. If you want to pronounce them in plural form, you can say jack rafters, common rafters, and heap rafters. Alright. So having known our rafters, the next member that we're going to identify is our struts. Our struts are the bracing which we have. Look at our strut from the cross section. These members are our struts. These members are our struts. But haven't known our struts, the next question you need to ask yourself is this: in your heap roof, where are the areas where you have your struts? The places where we have struts are those places where we have our trusses. Ask yourself, what then is trusses? Trusses are a collection of members that helps to increase the strength and the stability of our roof. Now, trusses encompasses, look, this is where we have trusses, where we have this triangular form. At this point we have our truss here, and trusses constitute of our rafter, our king post, tie beam, and struts. So this triangular combination of members that helps to give strength to the roof is known as what is called trusses. So where do we have these trusses? If you look at this top view, this is where you have your trusses. At this point we have truss here, we have truss here, we have truss here, we have truss here. So your identification of number of trusses in your plan will also help you during calculation of struts. You have to calculate for this member. So we have identified our struts. So the next member for us to talk about is what? Let's also identify our purlines. Purlines are those members that comes directly on top of our rafter. Look at these members. These members are called purlines. They are purlines. Haven't identified our purlines, the next thing for us to identify are our roof coverings. This our roof covering, this our roof covering. So on our roof covering, directly on top of the what? Cane post, you have your ridge cap, because there's always space. When this roof member come to this point, this one come to this point, there's always a space that is created in between. So we also use that roof covering, that same roof covering, to cover this space, which is called our ridge cap. This ridge cap is always common in gable roof, but in hip roof, there's also another cap which you need to know. Look at this point. At this point where you have this rafter, this hip rafter, there's always a space here. When you have this rafter coming and this rafter coming, there's always a space here which we have to use our roof covering to cover also. That same material to cover. And this kind of covering is called hip cap. We have hip cap here, we have hip cap here. So know the difference between ridge cap and hip cap. Alright, please take notes. Now the pitch angle is 45 degrees. Our rafter center to center is 0.9, that is 900 mm. Our pole line center to center is 0.6, tie beam center to center is 0.9. In my next video, we're going to learn how to calculate for the members one after the other. If this is your first time coming across my video, like this video, share and comment. I love you all.